Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so a couple other things too. It'll be, you'll want to comment and make comments after each story, just because that's how, so it's like, it's instinct to do that. But if we can keep those to a minimum, so that we can deliberate at the end, it'll save us a lot of time. Because I find that at the beginning, judges tend to say, well, what do you guys think about that? Or that's pretty good, or, you know, oh, I really like that. I mean, you can make a comment like, oh, wow, nice moments in that story, or something like that, it's fine. But we don't want to talk too much between each entry, because we'll be here.
Do you need our comments in here? And I tend to handwrite things.
I would prefer if you can, but you can, yeah, I mean, if you need to jot some stuff down, if you want to, then that way everybody can see,
Got
so
it.
that we're,
All right.
we're judging, but,
supposed to be.
So, sorry, we're gonna run through it, so if we can do
Oh,
it
just
basically
a
every
few
4
seconds then,
seconds,
okay.
yes, thanks.
You don't necessarily need to recuse yourself, right? But if that piece is by, you know, a partner that you work with on a regular basis, or you have any knowledge of how it was produced, you know, please do the right thing, recuse yourself from that. You don't really need to worry about, oh, I worked at this station for 10 years and I worked with that person for 10 years. If you think, you know, even if you weren't in the room while it was being produced, but if you think that you couldn't be a good judge of it, it's okay to recuse, but you don't need to be that strict on it with yourself. If you have anything go sideways or haywire with any technological stuff, or have any bigger questions about, you know, does a piece fit in, how should we talk about it, just raise me or Mark or both of us on Slack, and we'll be here in a minute. We can help you sort those problems out. But thank you all, and Bob, I'll let you get to it. Bob is he'll be cracking the whip, making sure that your discussions are good and fruitful, but not so long that we run off schedule. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Also, can you get the links sent out to the live stream so that we can?
They're gonna go out to everyone, don't worry. As soon as they're up, we'll
Okay,
get them sent.
perfect.
Yep.
So are we ready to go live now, or?
You guys can start as soon as you'd like.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right,
You want me to make the lights for you?
I don't know, do you guys want lights on or off? Let's see, what does it look like?
See what they look like.
That's probably, do you guys like that, or? is it too dark?
Maybe at least on the
Yeah,
screen.
the back one, yeah, that's good.
That's good. We got
What's your name?
just enough dimmer. it's not, so deadline is different than breaking. So breaking news or general news stories filmed, edited, and broadcast within 4 hours, consecutive hours. Okay, the goal of this category is to highlight television photojournalism under deadline pressure. This entry may be a standalone package, a package with a live shot, or a live shot with a VO or VOSA. The entry includes a live shot. The air check must be submitted with no re-editing allowed. 90% of the video and live shot must be filmed by the entering photojournalist. Entries must be 5 minutes or less. So, again, it's basically breaking news or general news that is done within 4 hours. And there's 15 of these. And so if you look at 38 on your tab there, you will see.
Oh, well, we have
I
9.
see 50.
You have 50?
I see 8.
I see 9.
Okay, go
Or
to,
8.
wait, 38.
Wait, actually, it's, yeah,
The
8.
first two are the same.
Oh,
have
I'm
the
sorry,
same
yeah,
number.
you're right. Yeah, there's only, my note, my 15 was minutes, not entries. So, yeah, so, it's about 15 minutes worth of watching. This shouldn't take too long, they're short. So, let me get to this, 38, you all see where you're at. So the first one, I want to make sure that this is right. Is it,
You got a discrepancy. On the grid, it says M9X for 2, and up there it says M9X8
okay, let's see.
for 2.
Wait a minute. Oh, I'm in the wrong category.
She'll do a 5-star, right? And then you're like, she'll do like a 3-star. And we're just kind of figuring out where the finalists are gonna be. We can go back and reevaluate stuff, but you don't have to think, oh, this is a 1, this is a 2. I would say 5 or 4, and then everything else, if it's an then she'll just give it a 3, right? But those scores are just preliminary. We can go back and we can go back to the notes. So we'll watch all of the entries in the category, and then I think it's easier to watch everything and then have a discussion instead of watching something and watching something and discuss. Because if we do it that way, we'll be here till Tuesday. Okay?
Yeah.
So it'll be Whitney.
Just copy and paste that.
Dan. That's a good idea.
I'm just doing notes in this column, score.
Yeah. Again, the score is just a mental thing for yourself. It's not. This spreadsheet will never leave this room.
Okay.
So you can write, that was stupid.
Or the other ones, but
Yeah,
I'm happy to
okay.
just sit and listen. I mean, there's
Okay.
not that many in this.
Yeah, I think there's only 6. Ariel and Bernie, do you guys feel comfortable with that?
Yes.
two outs, do we have any ins at all?
I think I like the next one better than this one.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Can we see the next one?
Yeah.
Can we compare those? Yeah, I like this one.
That's in, I need to really decipher this caption that's going on here, but there's something being revealed here that I haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to keep it in for now, just so I can think about it a bit more.
Should we keep the one before it in, or do you want?
Yeah, for now,
Okay, we'll keep them both in for now. That's an in.
It's in for me,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
definitely in for me.
And
It's in for me.
it's in for me. In for me.
Okay, we're down to 13. I'll remind you all again that we're doing first, second, third, and one HM. Nothing more. Don't beg me. Don't offer me money. Don't promise me a beer because I'm not going to give it to you. Only one HM, and you do not need to award an HM if you don't want to, but that's as far as we're going, and I will not budge. Although gin and tonics do help. No. Okay. Sorry, what's the next step? Well, we could go, CJ, can we put them up into a big,
Are we choosing the words now, or are we still doing
I think we're trying to get them down.
I think you should, I mean, if you guys wanna move things up, or if you wanna see through them again, we could do either. Captions can be read again.
I like to get captions read on the penguins in the snow.
I wonder.
Kenyan
Also-
herders.
If you make it full screen, like the green button at the top, maybe it'll. Because on mine it looks, I don't know.
It's a different view. I don't know if maybe if
Is
you
on
want to
mine?
read on here for a sec, I could go ask someone about how to put it into the contact sheet. If you-
Okay, sure. Why
Would
don't
that
you,
be-
sure,
Would you mind driving this for a
actually, I put
second?
in a text, maybe I get somebody in here, so,
Yeah, no,
You wanna do the-
read
oh, go ahead and do the
caption.
caption.
Yeah.
Okay. On the sea ice near Snow Hill Island in Antarctica, a lifeless emperor penguin chick of the species Amptinidites forsteri lies encased in a frozen meltwater pond. On September 10th, 2023, the National Snow and Ice Data Center shared a disturbing update stating sea ice in the Antarctica reached an annual maximum extent of 16.96 million square kilometers, selling a record low maximum in the satellite record that began in 1979. Regrettably, with observations in 2023 indicating unstable landfast ice where emperor penguins breed, the combination of adverse sea ice conditions and breeding failures may offer a snapshot of future where such events become more frequent and widespread, with grave consequences for emperor penguin population viability. The poignant image of the deceased emperor penguin chick was made this past November during my visit to Snow Hill, coinciding with a critical stage in the emperor penguin breeding cycle. Numerous other casualties surrounded us, too many dead chicks to count or to photograph. Still, I did not hesitate to document the scene as I grappled with the distressing evidence of climate change.
I thought that I had it so it would wrap around, but I heard it.
Oh, okay. Got it, okay.
I think you got it right.
To be clear, in case you're wondering, my 1 to 5 is based on an upper level. Or very.
Yeah, I think this one
This one
came
doesn't.
for me than the other one.
You like this one better?
I like this one better too,
Yeah,
yeah.
same. It struck me,
Go back to the previous.
He died before he could get justice, and it's heavy on my mind.
She's here representing her family for one reason.
Ginger, she's truly missed.
Good? Next.
Can I make a small request? Sorry. Can you dim the lights a bit or no?
Can we dim the light?
I don't know. It's okay. No, let's go.
You don't want it dark?
It's fine.
I saw the other rooms were all dark.
I mean,
I like it darker, but
yeah, I would like it dark.
It's kind of lit.
we're all editors here, right? We like the dark.
Yeah, this is better.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, this is
I
great.
love
Thank you so
this.
much.
Ooh, I feel cozy.
Good idea.
Videos.
My eyes love the dark.
Yes.
Did you edit in the dark? Me too.
Yeah. Pitch black.
Money out your pocket. Some of that money out your pocket. Some of that money out your pocket. This is not normal.
After 2 shootings at East High School in less than 2 months, anger is obvious.
This is traumatic. They shouldn't have to do this.
Parents confront the mayor and police chief
You guys don't get it?
as they wait outside the crime scene to see if their kids are okay yet again.
It's scary. You know, it's like this is a second shooting this year. It's just scary.
Tiffany Wright knows the frustration.
There's nothing you can do. You're nervous, you're anxious, you just want to see your kids' faces and make sure they're okay.
At the same intersection where an East High School student was shot and killed last month.
This is too much like not right.
Parents like Lawrence Gauchon
You gotta be here.
wait to reunite with their kids.
Isaiah,
Yeah,
what floor are you on?
3rd floor.
Okay.
He won't hand up the call with his son until he sees him come out of the school.
Say right now, I'm scared. I'm tired of my son going through this. Like it's his freshman year. He's never been exposed to this.
We will win. There is no doubt about it.
We were just getting ready for work. All of a sudden, it was super windy. We were battening things down, checking on everything, and all of a sudden the sun got covered by all this smoke. We didn't really think it was going to be too serious. And then when the sun went away, it was crazy.
Some higher stars too.
The New York City photo.
Except the filters are gonna be 3 stars. Like if we did 3 stars, then you're only gonna see 3 and not the 1 stars.
You can do less than or greater than or equal to.
Okay, then let's do that. Okay, so if you like anything that's more, let's give it a 3 star. Or let's give it a 2-star for now, if there's something that you'd like to see up the top, on the top row.
Yeah, I agree, the New York City.
Yeah, the city
smog
photo.
photo.
Probably forget about it, so hopefully we can remember.
Full custody of her, so I am more than able to pay my bills and live on our own together.
How we doing here, guys? Everything tasting great? Can I get another bourbon from you? I was apprehensive at first too when I heard it was 1906, but
Patrick Gibble,
it's worked out very well.
the general manager, says the minimum wage of $19.06 helps them attract and keep some of the best workers.
Are we good?
Yep.
Muted voices, is that next?
Back and forth between whether that feels more of a second place to me over the Gaza photo in the page.
Well, let's hold off on that because Ariel's not still deciding between the two. And the second one you said, Ariel, is the Times Gaza one that Bernie has at 4 right now, right? Well, one thing I want you guys to kind of take a look at is the front page holistically for each of these, and see if there's anything you want to discuss there in addition to those main stories. And then I was also gonna challenge either of you to sort of move the other on this one in particular, where you guys fall on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Can you go back to the other New York Times, please?
And I guess also if the descriptions affect any of these descriptions or any of these decisions for you guys.
I mean, I love the space that's given, but to me as a page, this feels like
Feel it, you know? Have a sense of peace and have a sense of joy and know that, hey, we're all in this together, we're a community.
I can't see Whitney and Dan.
Oh, I think we're on the wrong thing. I just realized. Yeah. I was like, well, how are we keeping up with these titles? All right. Hold on.
Oh, you're the template.
Yep. I just looked down at the tabs and saw that.
Yeah, it should be in 58.
Yeah.
All right. Just copy and paste.
Yeah. Good call. Good catch.
But I agree. I feel like I found myself wanting a little bit more context, and I bet this is like, you know, you're seeing it with some additional stuff around it, but it took me until about halfway before I was like, there was a hurricane, there wasn't a hurricane. Like I wasn't quite clear on like what had happened and what was happening next, as much as I was in the other ones.
And yeah, I didn't feel like I was connected to them and their families and like where were their children or like, you know, I think that might have helped it a little bit too. Yeah.
Anything else anyone wants to share about this one? Or we can move on to talk about the next one.
Good.
So the next video was Israeli soldiers clear bodies after Kfar Aza attack. Yeah. So, any thoughts on this video? How you felt?
Hill Block Party, Fremont Sea Fest Festival. It's all going on this weekend.
Here we go, Blue Jays first. Thank you. Taylor Swift last.
So much, all at once.
Seattle doesn't know how to do city planning, so they need to talk
About whether that one should be awarded. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or did you have?
I mean, I was, but like I would be open to it because I think again, like I think it is. There's like a nice visual interplay between the two. I think it's just like not, and like the layout is a little bit cleaner. I think as a package it works kind of well. I just think that like the human element like hurts it to a degree.
Okay.
But I would be open to keeping it as an honorable mention.
Okay. And then real quick before you guys decide on that, there was also the post one that was in discussion where you two fell on different ends, right? Or
I
sorry.
conceded that one.
Oh, okay, my
Yeah.
bad.
Like for the sake of the
sorry about
chopping
that.
of the.
She gave me one, I gave her one.
Yeah. It's all about
compromising.
Compromise, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I will say kind of to your point too, it's like the thing that is really nice, I think, about like the Free Press and the Chronicle is thinking about the audience, right? Like you have a much more specific audience that you can speak to, so it gives you a lot more opportunity, I think, on the real estate on the front page to be able to go like, this is the thing versus a place like the Times or the Post is trying to hit.
So like I didn't feel like I got a complete picture of what was happening on the ground, where this, I got, you know, even if I didn't know about the fire there, I would have gotten a good sense of what happened, what people went through while it was happening, and then also got what the community was doing in response to that. And I thought that was just a really strong way, because it's so hard to tell a complete story in 24 hours in that way, and I think they did a good job with that.
And that reminds me of, I feel like one thing that might have been different in the editing of the first one is, you know, with video, you don't want to repeat the same idea twice. And I feel like there were ideas that were repeated multiple times. And with just, it was just like wind and like, you know, things were shaking. We know, you know, I think it's okay to say that once, but like to say it repeated times, we don't necessarily need that. Like, what are you adding as you know, when you're including certain elements in your video?
So it seems like, you know, y'all were kind of like talking about how they compare to each other. So our goal now is to figure out, you know, a order, if there's a first place, second place, third place, and that's it, because there's only 3. There does not need to be all of those categories, but amongst you all, what do you think, I guess, stands out the most as a first place video?
It's a hard call for the second two for me.
I'm leaning toward the fire because it feels more complete to me.
I am too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the fire.
So I guess.
I mean, I agree with one. I agree with Chronicle as one. I think there's a good argument, and like, yeah, like for it being a local paper and taking that big of a risk on one story, I like that. And so then your second was the Free Press, and then third was Gaza Times, right?
Right. And I just wanted to add for the record, if you go back to the Chronicle, please, which I missed last night when looking at this, is 3 of the stories on this page alone is focused on her. grief tension in DC, that story is related to the top news, right? So imagine an entire 3/4 of the page was really on this woman's life and career. So I think as I'm looking at this a lot closely, I feel like that in itself, it's like an entire package in one page.
I think the thing for me for second between the Free Press and the Gaza Times page is, I guess I almost with the Free Press story is like how big, like this is a big use of a really dynamic photo, and I think like huge props for finding somebody who happened to get that photo is like kind of so much luck and tenacity all wrapped up. I think the thing that I'm curious about is just like not being as familiar with like the story itself and like the kind of local community is how big of a deal was this story within the context, right? Like it gives it such prominence, and I'm like, this must have been like such a big deal because of how much emphasis is put on it. And so it's just like, it's kind of crazy, but it's also like, is this a big deal? I don't know, like how much of the context around that, right? Or is it just a really dynamic use of a photo, which is what I think like on the Times page kind of edges me toward that a little bit more. Again, it's just like it's big-ish, but it's also kind of bigger for the sake of what that news is about and what that moment in this protracted war is. So I think just kind of trying to weigh like the news value, like of like what does that give to the community with putting that on the front page for each.
So I feel that, and many of us here, we all judge these kinds of competitions, and there's always a conflict in trying to decide, you know, hometown newspapers versus newspapers of national, international caliber. And that always comes into discussion when we are doing this. And the Times will always go wide and large on things such as Israel, Gaza, or such as Ukraine, right? So to me, I feel that newspapers in states here in this country have a deeper challenge in trying to engage its audiences to go into their news their newsrooms, because this is everybody's challenge, including mine, is the protected, you know, we're losing audiences. And I think in trying to get a defining picture about the top story of the day is an important part of what newsrooms do. And I think in both situations, I'm sure they have discussed about the impact of seeing a dead baby front and center while people are drinking coffee. That's a hard discussion. But at the same time, you have a fantastic picture on to me, a big story in Detroit that I think that's where places like the Detroit Free Press are that's what I'm going to do. If I work at a Detroit Free Press and that is the top story of the day, I'm going to try to find this picture and put it centered like this and wide, because that's what happened in my community. The Times will, you know, I'm sure it's a hard discussion, but I wish in some ways if they've already taken that step, they might as well go all out and put it bigger.
I wanted to actually give Sandra the chance to chime in on this, if you feel comfortable, since, am I correct, or did you
see me?
Oh, no, but am I correct that you recused yourself because of the post one, and now that it's out of the picture, would you like to chime in on this? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards what Bernie is saying, and also in thinking about making those decisions, for page one and the audience and your community. And sometimes when you have an opportunity, like what the Detroit Free Press did, to give room to a dynamic photo, sometimes that's our opportunity to do it. With the page with Gaza, what I suspect was happening is the debate of how big can we go? Does it pass the morning breakfast test? But then at the bottom, below the fold, giving people sort of a feeling of a bright or a lighter story with the hippo, although I don't know what I can't remember what that headline is. But just in terms of visuals and the opportunity to sort of play with visuals, to give readers an opportunity to breathe, especially after seeing a photo like that at the top. But I do think each of these publications are taking their audience into consideration, and you have to. And maybe that day Gaza was big, but the fact that they can offer their readers something different in Detroit with a dynamic photo like that, more power to the publication for the ability to do that. Because oftentimes when you're sitting in the room with editors and you're going through negotiating, is it going to be a 6 news front page, and do we have the photos to carry the top? Do we not have the photos to carry the top? Like, those kinds of conversations are hard, and as a photo editor, you're going to have to negotiate. But if I were faced with that photo, just to give readers something different to see, I would probably go with that.
So just to clarify, Sandra, what's your order for the remaining?
I would probably go with the order of the Chronicle, because I think celebrating women in politics, and she really had a storied career. And again, keeping in mind the audience, I think, I would go with that. I do agree with you a little bit on the secondary image. I probably would have tried to find something not so tight and in your face with the 3-column, but I think overall, I think the photos, even with the shadow box at the bottom, I think it works. And then the Detroit Free Press being second, and Gaza being third. I do like the Ukraine, but I do hear the feeling of a lack of a human element.
Yep.
Is what's missing. But I love the top photo, the graphic element of that, and yeah, it's I think that's well played, but it is missing a human element on the page, which would have helped it.
Okay, so I guess we can kind of go in two directions. One, I was going to ask if Ariel wanted to give a final argument for changing the order of that, or if we want to go with the 2-to-1 sort of decision.
I have been pulled in that direction. I mean, like, also it's hard to kind of go, like to push against, like, knowing, like, the balance of resource between the Free Press versus the Times, and kind of like what people are able to do. Like, I'm down with the Free Press 2, Gaza 3, and then Ukraine honorable mention if people are open to that instead of cutting it out, right?
I think that's exactly the pattern that we have.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. 99 more to go.
Well done. Yeah. All right. I'm going to give you guys a round of applause for getting through the first round with two, and then one recusal.
It's really hard. I don't know that people. I think that's the fun, in some ways, a fun thing that I find in answering readers' questions. Even though a lot of editors are like, I don't want to answer readers' questions, but to actually have to sit and explain it to someone who's paying for your content, it definitely gives food for thought, and it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought you each brought up some really good points with all of these in terms of resources, in terms of audience, in terms of like what discussions go on in a newsroom when you're talking about space and type of image. And just before we move on, I was a little curious if if the description on the Free Press one struck anyone. It kind of struck me in terms of how the image was sourced.
Oh, yeah.
I just like picture the panic of just like
Oh,
this
yeah.
happened and how do you make that happen? Because I mean, I don't know how early your print deadline is for the front page. Because like that, if this happens at noon and your first print deadline is 3 p.m., that's like such a narrow window of time to go like, who was there? What do you have? Can I see what you have? Can we get high res? What is your caption? Like,
not to mention like state of social media right now, but I'm just curious, Kathy, do you mind just telling us real quick about how this came together now that we're done judging?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big deal. You know, this was witnessed by hundreds of people. It's a big deal every year, this air show. It was a Sunday, which we actually don't staff the picture desk on Sunday, so the photo editor got a call from the news editor of that day saying we need to scramble. You know, the Monday front page is usually done Saturday. So it was like basically tearing everything up and starting from scratch and finding this guy and negotiating with him, you know, some kind of rights and money to get this image was a little harried because it was like he was kind of an amateur, but obviously not enough that you, so he didn't really know what to do, so it was trying to explain some of that stuff all on deadline. And we don't rarely go this big even on big news anymore. So it was, you know, convincing the news editor that like, hey, we've got to make this the biggest thing. This photo is so dynamic, and this was seen by hundreds of people. The guy ejected before the crash, so there was then like fuselage was everywhere, and so then we got somebody out there to do. So if you saw inside pages, you'd see like where they were picking up pieces from all over the community. But yeah, it was there was a lot of texting that afternoon. So I don't know if that answers
Thanks
the
for
thing,
sharing.
but yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious.
You could almost hear the
Yeah.
conversation that the people turning around, like it really speaks to the photo.
Yeah, it was a crazy day.
Yeah.
It's rare for a full
Kudos.
lead then.
Yeah,
picture lead.
yeah, it has to be a huge deal.
All right. Nicely done. Okay, we'll move on to the next category.
Our next category is newspaper section front, which is the front page of other sections of the newspaper. For example, features, sports, business, local news, etc. And do we want to go full screen once through again?
Yeah.
So the category is news section?
Yes.
Fine.
Newspaper section front, so any of this inside sections essentially.
But there are, the New York Times Magazine is in here.
So I believe, I was also trying to take a close look, I believe that was technically a special section. So sometimes they have like inserts. Can you,
It
can
says
you guys
special
just
section.
Oh yeah, it says special section.
Yeah, it says
Are there the descriptions on there too to give us?
Right,
Yeah.
thank you. Oh yeah, that would be helpful. Do you mind going through each of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Young Africa was a special section.
Yeah, right.
And it looks
So
like
that's
the
connected to
wildfire
this? Young Africa?
Connected
Oh.
to that? No.
Oh, okay, okay,
No, they
okay.
had a whole, they did a whole
Right,
thing.
right.
Just read the description.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Windsor changed like through Paris during Fashion Week. The looks and inside and outside the shows allow imaginations to run wild through impressive silhouettes, billowing fabrics, and top-notch personal style. Photographer Simbarashe Shaw captured the moment. Old World, Young Africa. Africa has the fastest growing, youngest population of any continent. By 2050, 1 in 4 people on the planet will be African. Early tremors of this seismic change are already registering around the world. This was the opening part of an ambitious New York Times project that published as a special online article and a dedicated 40-page section in print in October 2013. Which I assume means 2023.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
It's in 2013.
I think it was supposed to be 2023.
Okay.
The date on the actual page says 2023.
Okay.
So this is the front of the dedicated 40-page section in print.
Yes. And the Taliban's takeover ended decades of war, but their restrictions and the economic fallout threw many women into the new era of diminished hopes. The New York Times spoke with dozens of women across the country to understand how their lives in Afghan society have changed over the past year and a half. This is what they told us. Photographs by Kiana Hayeri. The project published as a special online article and a 40-page special section in print in March 2023. After Uvalde, a cemetery anchors families of victims. Hotshot fire crews work on the front lines of the biggest wildfires in the American West. We wrote along with them. John Keel, photographed by Chantal Anderson for an Arts and Leisure cover. And that's all.
I think I know what my outs are.
Yeah, go ahead, Sandra.
We can do it next.
Or just even start the discussion.
Yeah. Do you want to go through one by one?
Go ahead.
The Afghan is my out.
The one right in the middle.
That would be my out.
Can you talk a little bit about why?
You know, while I think it's a beautiful portrait, I feel like I've seen it before, and I have to wonder if women with children are only, like, what does that signify? Like, I think about women, there are single women, there are young women, there are, and I'm just wondering why it had to be a portrait of a woman with a child. But then I go back to, I feel like I've seen this before, and it doesn't feel different to me. I feel like it would have, you know, not having seen all of the photos on the inside, I just wonder, is there something else that could have been used? Or it's possible that this was the best photo for it to be able to support the text on the left. You know, I'm sure design was also taken into
You mean the
consideration.
negative space?
Yeah, the negative space. But, you know, it's a dynamic portrait, it's a beautiful portrait, but sometimes I feel like portraits like this tell me nothing.
And just since you mentioned it, keep in mind you guys are judging just on like the section front.
Right.
We're not going to be looking at the inside pages.
Right.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this one in particular? Or is there another people want to talk about?
I mean, I'll echo just a little bit of that. Like, just thinking about the interplay of headline versus image and how those conversations have to come together to make it feel like it's a complementary companion to the story that there's a lack of tension in the imagery. It actually feels more, it's like very soft and doesn't feel devastation.
Right.
There's
Even
a
if
kind of
it's internal
simplistic.
devastation.
Yeah.
The portrait doesn't make me feel that. I agree with you.
We can go to the full.
What did you say?
So we could go to the full view again.
The full view of this one, yeah.
No, of all of the.
To me, the strongest contender here is New York Times Old World Young Africa, because talking about dynamic photography and the typography plus the headline and then the picture, all those elements really go together very succinctly for me. You know, it just really shows everything about what this entire story is all about. And we've seen this picture, I've seen this picture over and over again. I can't help but go back to it because there's so much going on in this photograph that tells the entirety of the entire project.
Yeah. You feel joy, like it feels.
And it's about the world will be Africa by 2050.
I think it's, in a lot of ways, it's kind of the opposite of what the Afghanistan image is doing.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's so hard to encapsulate. I mean, this is another 40-page section to encapsulate the story in a single image, you know. And a lot of times, you know, you want to rely on the headline and say, oh, the photo shouldn't have to do all the heavy lifting. This one can do all of that lifting. You know, that image in itself really speaks to so much.
Just a note on the Afghanistan layout and photo and the photo that's being pictured here. I do love the photography. I do love the light, and maybe I'm okay with this because it wasn't too literal. We weren't showing the literal destruction of a country that has gone through decades and decades of conflict and war. And I feel that it has that poignancy, and they were probably telling, you know, we don't have to be too literal about it. And their focus is on, or was on, women and how they've been impacted by this war. I think it makes sense to me. And maybe, as to your point, we have seen these types of photos over and over again. I just appreciate the photography, and I'm not, you know, I think it might still be in contention. We'll see how everybody feels about the rest.
I guess what bothered me just about the portrait is women being defined as mother, having a child. And I wonder, to me it just says so many things about women and women in Afghanistan and stereotyping women, and I guess that's what really sort of, I just feel like it could have gone maybe a different direction, but I do, you know, I do want to reiterate, I do love the portrait. I think it's stunning. I think the lighting is beautiful, and their facial expressions are everything, but I just...
Maybe because, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Maybe because part of what they're trying to show here is that women in Afghanistan do not exist, and that this is a way of showcasing that particular theme largely. And I apologize, I did not read this particular project, but looking at it now, I think maybe that was part of what they were trying to show, that these women have voices, and they were trying to focus on how they live in a country that do not think of them as part of that community.
I mean, I kind of feel like something I'm thinking about with all of these covers is like thinking about how, as a reader, you come across them in the context of the paper, right? Like it's intended to show a separation or like a new thing versus like what you were seeing leading up to that. And I think that there's something kind of nice that maybe if that were like a very packed paper for the day and you come across this like very like dark, still, quiet thing that could have an impact, like, oh, I'm changing the pace of how of what I'm reading, what I'm seeing, like what is this, and maybe can pull you into it. That I think that there is something nice about that it is a quiet image, and it is like a lot more ambiguous. It makes you have some questions about like what is this really about, or like what are we kind of here for. There also is a part of me that's like I don't necessarily want like the picture of the Afghan woman like in the literal devastation, like which is kind of I think how we have seen, you know, a lot of imagery out of Afghanistan over 20 years, but could this have been a moment instead to use like a different kind of dynamic image, like an image with more of an interplay or a moment rather than such a like, you know, more of like a posed moment, like might have helped a bit. But again, I also didn't see the entire layout of it, so I think maybe this fits better with the tone of it. And so maybe the tone is, maybe it's a portrait series, maybe there's something in that where it makes more visual sense. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence about it, only in context of some of the other work here, I think. Like, I like this on its own, but like, I agree with like the Young Africa piece, which does that thing. It also stops you. It also kind of indicates a different kind of feeling from what you would have seen leading up to that point in the paper. And the ability, the fact of leaning on like a picture that is joyful and fun and dynamic, where like it could have gone a lot of different directions. I'm sure if you're doing a story that's a big project that hits the different course of emotion.
But it also shows Africa in a light that we don't see Africa.
Right.
And this is where between the two, that's why I'm like, I hear what you're saying about going through the paper and you land on this section. I just wonder for, you know, the power news readers, if they would say, oh, I've seen that before. Is that enough to grab them? I don't know. But that, for me, between the two, that's in Africa that people don't see enough.
Yeah. It sounds like this might still be in contention for us, but do you mind if we go back to thumbnails of all of them, and maybe just for sake of narrowing down the conversation, were there other outs you guys had in mind? Or definite ins?
The fashion one, for me, I think the image is really dynamic, the color, all of that. There's just, for me, they're so tense on either side of the frame that I feel like it's almost too tight. Like,
Too what?
Too tight.
Too tight?
Yes. Like, they're just, that, I'm looking to the right side of the frame, and, you know, as I'm trying to kind of explore this image and how it plays on I want it to breathe just a little bit more. And I don't know if that's full frame, right? Or if there is a little bit more, but I think that just a little easing back of that, you might allow a little more flow in the photo.
I like this photograph. It goes, you know, they definitely thought about how to do their headlines with this, because it really matches what you're seeing here. I also agree with you that maybe you need a little bit of air on the sides a bit, but this layout, the design, works for me.
Is it in one of your top 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was one of my top 4. It also made me